Okay, so I spent some time last night writing, and has very solid realization that the reason I couldn't do the writing thing before is because I needed the various layers of things to help me clear the junk out of the way, right? Um, so of course, when I'm talking about the stuff that I've been working on healing from, that goes really heavy, really fast, and it kind of stays there, right? So I spend some time writing until I just get to the point where I'm like so tired and energetically can't take any more processing through things, and then I have to go a different direction. And so last night I went to journaling for a while and listening to, I think, the Sappy playlist at that point to try to get back out of the funk. It's like, this is exactly why I haven't been able to do more earlier, because there was so much clearing I had to do before I could come around to trying to write about it in a way that makes sense and that honors all the pieces of the story without completely depleting me of all my energy and the whole process, right? So, so it's like, I need the different layers of things to help me process through it and clear it. So I wrote last night and then wandered off and did some journaling. And, of course, that's one of those big spots where I take the stuff to clear it as well. Because that's where I'm making my revelations and all sorts of other stuff. So that being one of the revelations that I was making, it makes sense that I'm going to write about it in that space. But yeah, I still feel kind of wiped out right now. But I don't blame that on the writing so much. I got up this morning and had to take my mom over to my grandma's house because she had a physical therapist coming to meet her at my grandma's house. Since my grandma lives next door, my mom decided that she wanted to have the therapist go over there because she doesn't want them coming into our house because it smells like pee, right? Because my dad's a hot mess, right? And yeah, so since the grass is kind of wet, or was this morning, because it rained, I think, last night and the day before. It's rained for a couple days, and maybe not extensively, but I didn't know how bad it would be to drive through the grass. I don't want to get hung up in the mud or anything, so I was trying to avoid that. So it wasn't a problem going over to my grandma's house. But then, of course, since I was trying to avoid it, especially when the grass is wet from dew also, I on the way back home, because I wasn't driving through the grass, I had to go the long way around, which, is about 10 minutes probably just under 10 minutes, to go from my grandma's house to our house, which is next door, but it's a one-way street right now, so you can't go that way, right? So it's just a pain in the ass. I had planned on taking all my stuff and just going straight over to the park to run, but then I decided I didn't want to do that because I had my mom's car at that point, and if I'm going to leave keys somewhere, I would rather not have the one with the push button start, right? So the car doesn't wander off just because the keys are in the car somewhere while I'm running. So I went and switched the car out, and since I had decided I was going to do that, I wanted to go back home, and I just put flip-flops on to get her over there for her appointment. So I had a few other little odds and ends that I had to do before I went and ran. And then I decided to go back to my original running spot, which is the park that's slightly further away, but more park-like. The one that's closer to our house, they have a walking path, but yeah, okay, so like the actual park, you're walking, the path is through the trees, and it feels like a park. The other one, it's like a gravel path, and you can see where I was starting out running, I think, until the part where it disappears into the trees in the field. It's probably like close to 3/4 of a mile, I would think. Won't swear to that by any means, but there's a huge bunch of it, and there's like soccer field, or like soccer goals and everything, and there's a little playground, there's a couple little dog park things, but like the path, I mean, it works, but I was realizing this morning when I was running through the trees, it's like it is much easier for me to run over here, and I'll start out and I'll get to a certain point. It's like, okay, I'd like to slow down and breathe a little bit better for a couple minutes. So, I'll think of some landmark that I want to go to, whether it's where the path splits, or where after I pass this road, or once I get to the bottom of this hill, or whatever. So there's like all these little landmarks that I don't see, I just know they're coming, right? So it's not a problem to start and just plan to stop at that point, and usually by the time I get to that point, I'll push it a little further anyway. But at the other place, since you're not looking at anything except for the path, it's very easy to talk yourself out of it. At least if you're like me and you're not really wild about running. It's really hard to just see, oh, there's a whole bunch of gravel ahead and I'm nowhere near the trees yet, or the corner of the field, or I can get to this bench or whatever. But it's like, it's just easier to give up on it and get frustrated. So I really appreciated that this morning, where it wasn't in the middle of just seeing the entire path, which is not the entire path, but so a couple years ago, when I was working on the writing thing more, Hay House did this thing where it was a writer's workshop, and I paid for the membership for a while afterwards, and it was kind of a nice little system, because there's the opportunity to, whatever your book idea is, you can present it to the people looking for new books to publish and whatnot, right? And there's a contest for like all the people that are doing this thing, and you have the chance to win something that way. I think I heard that's where Rebecca Campbell got her start, maybe. But like, there's a bunch of authors that I've seen through there that I like what they're doing, and that's I guess the idea that I have in mind for my direction and writing and all that stuff. But they're doing another writer's workshop. Of course, this one I won't be able to pay for the membership afterwards. Shy of the universe wanting me to, and making it possible. But the big thing is focusing on it, but it's just kind of interesting that it came around before, and I think basically I was just building the skills to, start moving in the direction of actually writing the book. There's been a few things that I've done where I've gotten a whole lot of ideas for it, and like the one, I think it was the 30-day book writing challenge, or get your book written thing. I signed up for it in 2021 and got a lot of good information. Still have all the emails. Only went part of the way through them before I got bogged down by all the really heavy, dense, emotional blah, and wasn't able to go any further. Which then, that was where the twin flame stuff kicked up, and then the healing process became a mandatory thing that I couldn't avoid anymore, because it was just going back to that thing I watched the other day where that Aurora Ray was talking about how twin flames are a spiritual technology. It's like that actually makes a whole lot of sense to me, because it's like this whole thing that just encountering this other energy outside of my own and realizing there's another person on the other side of this mirror kind of thing, if you will, made it so I couldn't just go back into hiding anymore. It's like, now we have to go through stuff. We have to process through the shit. There's no backing out of it and going into hiding or whatever. I have to actually go through this because I have to. And there's a monarch butterfly. So it's like, I started with this writing thing. Then there was the dense stuff that came up, and then I just couldn't move through it. And then it was this challenge thing that I was doing, the book writing challenge that was not through Hay House, that I was procrastinating on when I saw that he had the live stream going. And, I clicked into the live stream because, of course, I was on social media because I was, trying to find ways to waste time on the writing aspect of it, because I, had kind of hit the emotional wall as far as what I could stand going through at that point in time. Because, again, it was focusing on the suicidal ideation aspect at that point in time. So then I go into this live stream that this guy's doing, and it was like the second one, I think, that I had come across. The first one, it was just really kind of preoccupied with how cozy the atmosphere seemed, right? And then the second time, when I was trying to distract myself from the book writing thing, and then he was signing off real quick, and I just, I was like, what'd I say? Something to the effect of, well, shit, now what am I supposed to do to distract myself from the writing, or something like that? And he responded, and then it was like, fuck, I've been seen, right? So going back to that little mouse running through the kitchen, and then somebody turned the lights on kind of a thing. It was like that kind of experience, and then ever since then, it's just been a big healing journey, right? Which, again, is another... I think it's probably going to be another book. I think the first one's going to be focused on the direction I'm moving with it at this point in time is... Okay, so I found this quote. Well, I didn't find it. I've known of the quote for a while, right? But there's this quote that says something to the effect of, while you can't force someone to hear and agree with your... the thing with never underestimate the power of planting a seed, that idea, right? I don't remember the full quote for some. I'm kind of in a fog today. I've spent way too much time with my mother, and I think that's a big part of it. I came over here to skate to try to clear some of it from my system, and I don't know that it worked. I was going to do a video earlier and try to clear it that way, but then I decided it might be better to skate first, and so I did. It's just been like... But anyways, so the idea is, like when I hear that quote, it always makes me think about, you're trying to help somebody, right? The seed that you're planting is something to uplift something in that situation. But since my inclination throughout my life has always been getting hung up with the transmuting the dense energies, and the heavy, icky side of things, right? It's always been, that slant towards the pessimistic, the disappointing, and all those things. So, I started with the idea of, okay, so the one story that I've talked about many times, where somebody that never should have had access to my energy, period, got access to my energy, and because of that, there's kind of this little... Okay, the seed that was planted in that situation was, of course, that was the guy that I didn't take seriously immediately from, when I got the tour of the Baptist house that I was going to be staying in my senior year in college. And he was like this, new girls moving into his dad's housing ministry. His dad was the house pastor, and so he, was a regular feature in this space because, that's where his dad was. And then when I was the new resident coming and, was moving in for the summer, and he happened to be there while I was getting the tour, he shifted into like super flirt mode, and it was just, I've told this story a lot, so I'm not going to go into all the details, but what eventually happened was I ended up bumping into a group of his friends when I went out with some of my roommates to a bar, right? And one of his buddies, and we never had the evidence of it, but we assumed because he had friends that were there that night when we went, and a couple of the other guys that I lived with were aware of some of his friends, and so one of them ends up with my phone number and making these really sleazy comments to me, right? And I didn't think about it for a ridiculously long time, honestly, until I've been doing the YouTube thing and been processing through things, and then one day I find myself going back to this story where this guy gets my phone number and starts harassing me, and so I never got the sense that I was in like real danger, but I also blocked the guy when he made like some kind of rapey comments, and that was when I blocked him. Like before that, I allowed him to have access to way too much of my energy, when he never should have had any access to my energy, because it's just how I was back then. I didn't know boundaries were a thing you were allowed to have, and and it should have. So then, this guy says, or makes these comments that I blocked him, and it bothered me for a while, and I remember talking to some of my housemates about it, but, they were pretty sure I didn't have anything to actually be concerned about, and, so we just kind of moved on from it. And then, eventually, I forgot about it, But then once the soul twin flame thing came up, and then I'm processing through shit I didn't even realize he needed to process through, I'm suddenly connecting back where my ex that I divorced in 2019, he had taken to saying things like he should have raped me when he had the chance, and that kind of shit. And it made me angry more than anything. And I think that was the biggest thing about it, was he said it because he knew it was something that would piss me off, and he could, basically fuck with me, because he could say the mean thing and affect me, even if it was just by pissing me off in the moment. Right? So once I, stopped allowing him to sway me that easily, and, I had better control over my energy, and when he, he would say and do shitty things, and I was able to be removed from the situation enough where I could see what he was saying and doing and realize that he was literally just looking for a response. He wanted a reaction out of me, and so I stopped giving him the reaction, right? And then that really pissed him off, because then he couldn't fuck with me anymore. But then, trying to process through how I got into that situation with that kind of person that would come around to saying those things, it's like, it goes back to this other point from, that was like 2005, fall 2005 when that came up. God, that's been 20 years. And I didn't even meet my ex until 2012. So it was one of those things that, it was, it just kind of set in without me even really being aware that it was anything more than just some fleeting thing that had happened, and I had to deal with for a very short moment in time, right? But then realizing that that's actually, even though it wasn't something I thought of more than I did, it was just something that still was one of those things that ultimately was part of the chipping away at my identity and my my sense of self-worth and value and all that stuff. So yes, that's what I've been writing about most recently. So of course it's heavy, and of course it's really kind of this weird experience trying to think through things that are that happened so long ago. Like there was a time where it seemed like I remembered everything pretty clearly, and like now it's like, who was there? Like I remember this one night I was sitting with my one of my housemates, Chris, in the guys' lounge. We were watching Bones. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Chris was in there by himself at one point, and then everybody just kind of ended up wandering in. But I think by the time we were done, there were like 7 of us in there. But at some point, we had talked about that, and I remember it coming up, but I don't really remember how we got to that that space and like the details surrounding it. And then it's like, well, how much of this is even necessary for this part of the story? So that's kind of a weird thing that I'm navigating through too. But man, yeah, just that whole heavy space. But it's kind of interesting too, because I've been thinking about, like I've mentioned a lot of the frustration that has come with, like my brother and I were pushed to go to college right after high school because it had been our mom's biggest regret that she had never gone. And on the one hand, it was kind of frustrating because we weren't given the option. We didn't know anything about who we were or what we wanted to do in life, or what we even could do. We just knew we had to go on to school, right? So his method was change his major every semester and then drop out after 4 years and join the Air Force. And I was like, I don't want that. So it's like I at least want to leave with some kind of degree. So I solidified my path on that end within the first couple of years. I think it took probably a year and a half or so. But I ended up graduating with a dual major in psychology and religious studies and my dual minor in interpersonal relations and creative writing. And when I was writing about that part of it the other day too, then I was thinking about, on the one hand, it probably would have been beneficial had I not immediately gone to school, had I taken maybe, I don't know, a few months to try to figure out what I wanted to do more with my life or something. But then at the same time, to have been forced to do this thing at a time that I didn't know what I wanted for myself, it at least blocked me from just jumping into like some kind of marriage or something right straight out of high school. Like, my mom wasn't even out of high school before she got married, right? So she married my dad 2.5 weeks before she turned 19, I believe. She graduated high school mid-semester, or midterm. So, after the fall semester. So she gets married November 17th. Her birthday is on December 4th. And then whatever day the last day of school would have been, which is, I think generally was around, somewhere between December 15th and 22nd or something, right? I don't know what it was in 79, but when I was writing about some of this stuff, it's like, at least by my not having the ability to not go, she kind of forced me on the higher education piece. But especially looking at the world today with the freaking government trying to take everybody back to ignorance, right? That's basically like the purpose of Christianity, is keep everybody ignorant so they don't learn better and don't figure out how to do better for themselves and get stuck. And like, in a lot of ways, I can see how that was kind of my mom's path. She always said that it was her biggest dream to be a mom. But it was like, was there really any other option? Because that, especially like the whole Christian nationalism thing that they're trying to push harder now, they want everybody ignorant. Because if you're ignorant, you don't know who you are, you don't know your worth, and you're not able to find those things. And so you won't fight back because you don't know what to fight for. Right? So that was one of my biggest frustrations with my mom when I was in high school, was the fact that I could sit there, she worked in the high school cafeteria. She was a manager for part of it. But she would be there talking with her coworkers, and they seemed like they were students more than people working their jobs. It's like, you hear them gossiping amongst themselves, and it's like, yeah, that feels pretty Mean Girls, actually. But it was just a frustration, right? So at least by not having the opportunity, it forced me to get some education where I might have slacked off on it otherwise, right? Like that, the path that was culturally pushed is you're supposed to just, be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, right? It's like, well, those things don't work for me. I don't like cooking unless I'm like participating with other people, and we're like having a bonding moment that way. I'm okay with being in the kitchen that way, but like otherwise that's not my favorite place to be. right? I like to eat. I don't like to prepare the food. My mom likes to make fun of me because I've said for years, it's like, all we have is ingredients. I don't want to do anything with this shit. Damn it. Find me something that comes out of a box, I'll handle it. But to actually put everything together, that's why I frequently have my breakfast bowls. Because I don't like the effort. Just cooking is not my thing, okay? Anyway, so my mom went over to my grandma's house this morning, and then I had to go pick her up after I was done running and after I had taken a shower and gotten ready and everything. My mom wanted to leave at like 12 o'clock because she had an appointment that she absolutely could not be late for because she fucked that up the other day. She said she and my dad both had an appointment, and they started at 11:30. Apparently hers was at 11:15, but since she said 11:30, we missed that one. So we get there and she's already late for it, and she didn't realize that it was she had it in her calendar in her phone because she had an alert pop up, and that was how she found out. And she's like, apparently I'm supposed to be there. Oops. So she was freaking out because she just could not be late. It's like, whatever. I wasn't worried about it. I always look up on my app before I'm get ready to leave, how long it's going to take to get there, just so I know with traffic and everything. And it actually, like, originally said 38 minutes, and that said 36 minutes. I was like, hey, we're like improving our time. And then it took us a different way, and it's like, I might actually like this way better. But anyway, so I go over to my grandma's house, and I'm waiting on my mom to get her shit together. And, I had sent her a text before I left the house. I was like, on my way. And when I got there, she's still sitting on the couch without her shoes on and doesn't have her stuff together or anything. It's like, did you forget you have somewhere to be? So she got to get up and get her stuff and get her shoes on and get ready to go. While I'm waiting on her, I had my Horus earrings on today. And my grandma asked what was on my earrings. I said, the Egyptian god Horus. And my mom looks and says, it looks like skeletons. I was like, no. I said, it is the falcon-headed Egyptian god Horus. And I don't think they knew how to respond because, of course, my family, that's not acceptable. My grandmother, when she went to church, she was going to the Southern Baptist Church. So it's like very into that fundamentalist BS kind of thing. But she didn't really do anything with it. My mom was like, oh. But then we get in the car and we're going down the road, and she looks up something and tries to pull me back into the Christian bullshit and, talking about some Charlie Kirk thing where, Megyn Kelly and somebody else were on his show and it has over 1 billion views or whatever. It's like, so the fuck what? I don't care. Almost said something about the, well, I almost made a smart-ass remark that she would not have appreciated. That was, not exactly pro-Christian, and that would have been a problem. But it's like initially I had this thought of why is she telling me this, and then later it kind of occurred to me. It's like she said that because she's trying to pull me back into where I'm supposed to be, because I just mentioned that I'm wearing earrings that have the Egyptian god Horus on them, and that's clearly not acceptable by Christian standards. So it's like, yeah, that explains that actually, but whatever. Okay, so there's been a couple weird things that have come up. Yesterday, I think my dad had an early appointment in Greenfield, and so we go to his appointment. It's like 9 o'clock, and afterwards we went out for breakfast, and my dad's driving my mom nuts. And not even a little, like a whole lot. And it's not really new, but there again, because my brother and I aren't getting drug into their chaos as much as we used to, they're having to sit with those feelings on their own and not affect us. So they're having a hard time with this, right? So yesterday, I went over to Cracker Barrel because that was where my mom volunteered to go. And it was fine. I went to the bathroom before, and I was like in the hallway going to the bathroom. It's like, I was trying to figure out if she was going to go to the bathroom or not, because she kept looking like she was starting to move that way, and then, she turned back to talk to my dad or something. I was like, are you coming and I need to hold this door, or are you not coming and I can go and, do what I need to do and go back out here? And she decided she was going to go in there. Well, I think it was just for the moment of getting away from my father, because she goes in there and didn't go in, so I come out of the stall and washing my hands, and she's talking about wanting to email his doctor about, like the shit fiasco and all this stuff. And she said she really wanted to talk to him about it at the appointment, but then my dad's sitting there staring at her and she didn't feel right about doing it. So she's going to send the email to the doctor behind my dad's back. Cool, whatever. So she was talking about that, and I said, the thing is, I said, it's not new stuff. I said, he's always been inclined to feel like he shouldn't have to do anything because it's going to be somebody else's problem to deal with whatever shit he, comes up with. Like shitting on the floor, right? That's supposed to be somebody else's problem to have to deal with. So therefore, he left it there, knowing that he shit on the floor, knowing that it was shit, knowing that at some point I would go through there and it would piss me off, and he still went back and laid down rather than dealing with it. So then when I go in there, of course, coming through like a fucking hurricane because the house smells like fucking shit, and that's a problem, and I said, okay. I said, I already know the answer, but is this shit or is this coffee? And he said, it's shit. And I said, then why the fuck did you leave it in here? It is yours to clean up. I am not cleaning this up, right? And, so it was just the whole thing. And, basically he didn't clean it up for shit. He, I've mentioned it seemed like he petted it and then later was laying on the floor in it. And so it's like, yeah. But anyway, it's like, when I was talking to my mom, because she was talking about, like, some of the stuff that he's doing with leaving stuff around, too. It's like, it's not new. I said he's always expected somebody else was going to have to clean up after him. He's just getting worse about living that out now. Because that truck's loud. Because he doesn't think he should have to deal with it. And I told her, I said, he flat out told Wayne that, it was, that as the oldest child, it is his responsibility to take care of his parents. He said he did it for his parents, and she did it for her parents, and my brother was supposed to do it for his parents. And she just looked at me and she said, when was that? I said, I'm pretty confident it was before the strokes. I said, I don't remember exactly. So while we were eating, I sent my brother a message. And I told him what I had said about that to her. And, she kind of looked dumbfounded. And, there was a moment of, did he possibly have something to do with my brother moving, right? Excuse me. And, my brother said, yeah, it was around Christmas when, they were pissed at us already. And I forget what he said exactly. So, the refresher on the Christmas bullshit was my grandfather had recently passed away, December 3rd, and my mom suddenly comes in trying to be all big and cheerful after ignoring Gracie for the most part of the fall school semester because her daddy was in the hospital. And that was just like this big crisis. And, me and my brother and his family let the family down because we didn't go out of our ways to prioritize getting to the hospital when my grandfather was doing so badly. And, had found out that he, was basically at the end of the road and they couldn't do anything else for him, right? We got in trouble for that. My mom was bitching at us the whole day because everybody was at the hospital except for me and my brother's family and one cousin, right? Everybody else was there. And we weren't trying to get there because that's literally that's the big reason why it's taken so long for me to start finding my way in this world. And my brother as well, he's 45 and he's married and got a kid and now they're out in Oklahoma, but it's like still relatively little as far as having our own lives because we weren't supposed to. We exist so the family could suck the life out of us, and that is it. We weren't supposed to have our own lives. We're just, energetic dumping grounds, make everybody else feel better about, their shitty existence and the misery that they would have to otherwise face that my dad and my mom are now facing because they can't just pull us into their chaos all the time. Right? So she was all horrified at the fact that had been said, but that was also partly said because my dad was trying to bully us back into submission, into, mom's not happy and you guys are failing her, letting her down and blah, 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 that kind of shit, right? So that was a big part of where that came in at. And, of course, like a week after the funeral, my grandma was shitty about my brother skipping out on our grandfather's funeral for his daughter had a choir concert for something. His 8-year-old autistic daughter had an elementary school choir thing downtown, and while they said, my brother told our mom that, Gracie had this choir thing and they wouldn't be there, they still, for some stupid reason, assumed that his wife would go with the kid and that would be enough and he would be where he belonged at his grandfather's funeral. And he was, we talked about it, it's like, don't do that. It's like, you belong with that kid because, her dad, she just adores her dad. And we were talking, me and my brother were talking the other day. He said he's really kind of frustrated because she's got a bully at her new school. And he's trying to teach her the fine art of revenge, or of just saying the right thing at the right time to, make the bully problem not be a problem or whatever. And he said he cannot get his really sweet, compassionate daughter to understand this concept of, putting the bully in her place or whatever. I said, I don't think that's a bad thing. And, then I started looking at my numerology app, and, she's her attitude number is 9. And I don't remember all of what that involved, but it talked about how, they don't really feel the need to get pulled into some of the drama, though they might get their feelings hurt and whatnot. It's like they're, as far as engaging with the problematic stuff like that, it just sounded exactly like her. Of course, I have this numerology app, and I just was taking screenshots because I have the kids' profile in there. I put everybody or everybody in the family has a profile on there. And I had recently started looking into mine again, because of course I knew I was, okay, Life Path 1, which talks about leadership and some other things, so there's a lot of stuff on that end that's like, hey, that fits, I understand that completely, right? Well, then one day the attitude number got my attention. It's an attitude number 7 and it was talking about tendency to be a loner and not overly involved with peers and all this kind of stuff. But it was like there was a lot of things that felt like an overlap with the life path part of it, but then like this whole other layer to complicate my I guess antisocial behavior because I would rather be alone than dealing with a bunch of chaotic people that are all over the place, like my family. But yeah, anyway, what was today's thing? Oh, today my mom was starting in on this big dramatic spiel of how tragic the shit with my father is. And I said, it's not tragic. I said, we don't come here to this planet to live forever. That's not how this works. At some point, we're going to die. Death is a natural part of life, right? They go hand in hand. You don't get one without the other. He's not going to forever prolong his life or whatever. And thank God for that, because I could not deal with that forever. I said, so this whole idea of how tragic it is, it's like, that's shit. That is absolute shit. It's like he made his decisions. It's like he chose to stay miserable and to be a miserable person and, allow that be his existence, right? And I told her, it's like, as many times as I've ever said that there was some kind of car issue over the years. Because he's the father, he's supposed to be the one dealing with that to some degree. And my mom, for some time, would brag on, his car skills or whatever. So today she randomly comes up with, I said that I have felt for a long time like if the car blew up with me in it, it would be okay, because then it would solve two problems. It'd get rid of the kid and it'd get rid of the car that had an issue, right? So it's like, I've been saying that for a while, right? So that's like a big part of my whole YouTube experience too. Once I, really started navigating how much of the shit goes back to my connection with my father, that was, that resentment piece of him resenting me and my brother for existing because of his choices. Yeah, but anyway, like I mentioned the thing with if the kid or if the car blew up with me in it, it'd solve two problems. And she said, I don't think that's true. I was like, okay. I said, well, how many times did he tell your son over the years, especially early on, that anytime there was a problem, it was just bad gas? And she stops and she says, well, he said that a bunch. And I've even been told that a couple times. And she said, but I think that's because he didn't know what the problem was and didn't want to admit to it. It's like, and yet, why is that more acceptable than saying, I don't know, and taking it to somebody who might potentially know? It's a bug. But it's like, instead, we got to deal with this whole ego thing and just, no, there's not a problem. Just whatever you think is happening, you're stupid. That idea. It's like, he might not have flat out said, you're stupid, and that's the problem. But that's, it was kind of, that's what came across. So it's like, okay, well, so my brother and I, anytime we've mentioned that there was a concern that we couldn't handle, the response was, make fun of us in some kind of way. Yeah, cool. Whatever. So that was kind of today's ordeal. But yeah, she was just all big and puffed up, and how tragic. It's like, bullshit. It's like, dude, 73. He's made his life choices. And I'm not getting pulled into his chaos anymore. It's like, I'm not getting pulled into her chaos anymore than I absolutely have to. That said, it is very difficult existing in this space and trying to be disconnected from their bullshit when I still have to live in that space, you know, and run appointments because they can't, go to, you know, they can't drive. Although my dad did do it the other day. He took the truck for an oil change and went and got his hair cut. And, yeah. You know, we talked about that a little bit too. Because she kept saying that she pissed him off, and so that was his fuck you. Because he knows he's not supposed to be driving. So, fuck you, he's going to do it anyway. Right? And it's like, yeah, but when he hurts somebody else, and she said, well, I don't think he is thinking about it like that. It's like, that's a problem. It's like, he doesn't think about anything outside of himself anyway. He never has. You know, it's like, the extent of it is, okay, with, with his connection to my mom, right? So, if my brother and I got out of line as far as weren't getting pulled into mom's chaos well enough just by what she did, he would amplify it, bring it back to us and, talk about how we were the problem. It's like, this is a fucked up system that I want no part of. And I'm glad I finally have the cognizant awareness of it so I can disconnect further. And obviously, like, it's really hard to stay completely out of that chaos when I have to live in that space. Know how to move my camera with that weird lighting. But yeah, anyway. Oops. Nope, that ain't it. I don't know. I told my brother yesterday, it's like, I feel like I'm going to be in this situation until I say a lot more things that, to clear up some of these things that they want to act like are suddenly big things, but they've always been there. It's like, no. We're just not going to live in denial anymore. This has always been there, and you've just found a way to make it somebody else's problem. And, I haven't come out and said it specifically that, a big part of why so much of this bad behavior is enhanced now is because he can't affect me and my brother as much as he could before. We're not going along with it as easily. Like, I feel like she already at some level kind of knows that, but she doesn't understand why or how or whatever, that we've disconnected. And so she's still trying. She's absolutely still trying. So yeah, anyway, I feel like I have talked a lot of this out of my system now, so I feel a lot better than I did when I came over here and was just skating. Skating, it's like, I feel like this just isn't clearing it today. Like, it's just, bleh. And on top of running this morning, and I'm planning to skate tomorrow morning. Although I've also thought about going and attempting to donate platelets, which I can't do if I skate first. Although if I plan on trying on Sunday instead, that might be a better idea. Even though they're only, I think they only take platelet appointments through 11 o'clock. So 11 o'clock would be the last appointment time because it takes like 2 hours, right? So they don't want to be there forever. That's one of their early days to close. So, yeah. But I don't know, because the last several times I've gone, it's like my iron's not been high enough, There's been a couple times, I mean, it's like every second or third time I'm able to donate. And, you know, part of that is need more iron. But, like, okay, so somebody mentioned that the Flintstone vitamins with iron were, like, the best thing to do that. Those made me want to throw up. And, like, iron pills in general, it's like my system doesn't like them. But then also, you know, like they talk about, like, red meat is something you can eat to help with the iron. It's like, I don't need a lot of red meat right now either. Yeah, I don't know. So I might just go try and see what happens, and if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. And might go home and skate again. So, yeah. Anyway, since I am in a significantly better mood now that I've talked some of this out of my system, I'm going to go home. I'm thinking I might take a bath to the rose salts out, and that always helps. Or maybe I want to do that after I write some, because I know I'm going to go back into some more of the density and just the icky energy. So if I, you know, save the bath for after, I mean, granted, I'm not hugely, like, I sweat, of course, while I was skating, but not as bad as normal because I wasn't skating real hard, and I didn't skate for near as long. I capped it at 4 miles today just for the sake of lack of want to. Although when I was at home, it's like I have to skate. I gotta do something to shake this out of my system because it's not working. I don't know. On the one hand, I feel that writing is definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And would it be better to, I mean, because, you know, I did skate, and I was slow on wanting to skate because I washed my hair early. It's like, well, my hair will be all nasty when I just washed it today. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, also the slide is annoying me, so I think I'm going to wrap it up either way. And then I'll go figure the rest of it out. And I'll probably talk about it the next time I do a video. As always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.